Good evening, everyone, and thanks for being here. I am very excited to be with my newest best friend, Eboo Patel. I've had a wonderful time reading his book and very excited about having a conversation with him and then drawing you into that conversation. One of the delights about Eboo's book is his disclosing something of his own spiritual practice, particularly during the holy season of Ramadan. He had me when he said that prior to entering the day, he would get up, have his small breakfast, and then have a time with a poem by Rumi. Rumi's one of my favorite poets, and I thought it would be really wonderful if we all could have a kind of a moment of centering around Eboo reading one of his favorite Rumi poems. How does that sound? All right.
Thank you for that invitation. Thank you all for being here. So this is a poem that I actually first heard in Konya, where Rumi is buried in Turkey. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times. Come, yet again, come, come. A couple reasons that this is meaningful to me. It's actually in the book Sacred Ground, and I say that whenever I look at the Statue of Liberty, right, this beautiful woman of welcoming, the inscription is, "Bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free," right? It's this notion of America in radical welcoming and openness. Bring your traditions, plant those seeds in American soil, and let them grow into institutions and into congregations that are welcoming and open to others. And so that spirit of welcoming and openness that I think is at the heart of the American tradition, I think is at the heart of Islam as well. And nobody articulates that better or more beautifully than Rumi.
So I need to confess that I get emotional when I talk with people like Eboo about the issues that we're going to be addressing tonight, particularly the issue of interfaith relations and also the issue of the idea of America. Right after 9/11, a lot of us gathered at a mosque here near USC. And I heard a sentence that changed my life. And it was this: to be religious in the 21st century is to be interreligious. And it is that dedication that draws me to Eboo and the way he thinks. So I'm going to apologize only once for being emotional about these things. If I get choked up, you'll just say, you can chalk it up to that. But one of the great moments in his book is his telling about the Genesis moment for this book. So Eboo, would you?
Sure. So this is actually Ramadan 2010. It's August of that year. So I'm waking up at around 4 a.m. and I'm having my last meal before doing my prayers that begin the time of fasting. And it's at that point that I like to, as Muslims do, to read more from the Quran or read from Rumi or just additional time of centering and meditation. Muslims believe that God listens extra closely during those dawn hours. But instead, if people remember what was happening in August of 2010, it was the crazy discourse we were having around Cordoba House or the Ground Zero Mosque. And so I'm not reading Rumi. I'm not reading the Quran. I'm literally on right-wing hate website after right-wing hate website trying to anticipate the storyline of the day. Because every day there are new attacks on Imam Faisal and Daisy Khan, who are the founders of Cordoba House. And there's new word about this being a terrorist command center, et cetera, et cetera. These are people that I've known for many years, the people who I admire, who've spoken of building an institution supported by the Muslim community that would be of service to the entire nation. And Cordoba House was the fruit of their vision. And so I'm, basically trying to figure out if I get called by CNN or whoever else, what am I going to say? And that's when I see my name, Eboo Patel, Muslim extremist. Eboo Patel, Muslim radical. Eboo Patel, Muslim terrorist. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm the dude who founded the Interfaith organization. I mean, really? Me? And it was at that time, I felt like I was teetering between anger and despair, right? I thought that America had entered the twilight zone happily, that our nation wanted to believe the ugliest, hateful, most twisted lies about a religion that's 1,400 years old and that has 1.5 billion adherents around the world. And it was not a particularly happy or spiritually enhanced Ramadan for me. So a couple days into, I think, the second week of Ramadan, I get a phone call from Sheikh Hamza Youssef, who is a spiritual mentor in my life, and maybe the most well-known Muslim preacher in America, especially within Muslim circles. And he kind of plays a St. Francis of Assisi role in my life, and he also plays kind of the mad scientist in Back to the Future movies. And he'll kind of jump into my life, he'll call me, he'll tell me I have to read a book or go to a conference, and then he'll disappear. So he calls and he says, "Assalamu alaikum, Eboo Ramadan Kareem, wa alaikum assalam, Sheikh Hamza Ramadan Kareem. How are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm doing terrible. I can't believe what's happening to Imam Faisal and Daisy in the media. I can't believe that they're calling what is effectively a Muslim YMCA a terrorist command project." And Sheikh Hamza, who is not one to hold his fire, right, says something that turns my world around. He says, "You're getting this all wrong. These aren't the moments to be angry or despairing. These are the moments that change agents yearn for. Our nation is molten and can be shaped." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Listen, we have known that there is an ignorance around Islam in America, and we've also known that there are these really ugly forces of prejudice who want to repeat the lies and hatred of the Al-Qaedas of the world. Now it's out in the open. And what happens when an ugly prejudice is out in the open is the better angels of American nature come out and engage those and defeat those. And you, especially the work you do at Interfaith Youth Core, you have to do your work well at this point." And then it clicked and he was gone, right? That's the mad scientist from the Back to the Future movies part. That's when I started thinking, that we actually have this really beautiful dynamic across American history where the forces of prejudice, whether it's Peter Stuyvesant in the 1650s or the anti-Catholic and anti-Jewish forces through much of the 18th, 19th, and early 20th century, will try to marginalize a community. And other people, who I call in sacred ground the forces of pluralism, will stand up and defeat them. And this was our chance to write our version of that chapter in American history. And it was actually a great honor to be able to be a part of that. And that was the beginning of the book.
So we just kind of breathe that in, right? That leads you to an exploration of what I think is a really radical notion and a correct understanding of the essence of America, the idea of America, which interestingly enough resonates with something the Prophet Muhammad said.
Right.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so there's this beautiful line from the Prophet Muhammad that Muslims follow that by saying, "May peace and blessings of God be upon him." It's the hadith literature, which are the sayings of the Prophet. None of you truly believes until he wants for his brother or his fellow what he wants for himself, right? And in my mind, I connect that with one of the sayings of the Caliph and Imam Ali, who's the fourth of the caliphs and the first of the Shia imams, who sends a letter to his governor in Egypt and says, "Everybody there is either your brother in faith or your equal in creation." And in this notion is central, I think, to both Islam and America, right? That we have to lift up and emphasize the dimensions of our traditions that build relationships with people different from us. It's this notion of not only radical openness, but faith and nation as a bridge of cooperation rather than a barrier of division or a bomb of destruction. And there are powerful movements out there making especially faith a bomb of destruction or a barrier of division. And a big part of what you're about in your church in Pasadena, a big part of what we're about at Interfaith Youth Core, a big part of what Reverend Danny Fisher and the folks who are here from MPAC, and I have a lot of friends in this room, a big part of what they're about and what they're doing is making faith a bridge of cooperation. So I'd love to read a selection from Sacred Ground about how I think that America is a nation that this is woven into our